Hi, welcome. I'm Chris Gebhardt. I'm a technical marketing engineer. Worked with NetApp for 14 years. I focus on virtualization solutions with NetApp and our portfolio of products. And today we're going to be talking to you about what we're doing to partner with VMware on cloud, VMware Cloud on AWS.
And I am Glenn Sizemore. I'm a senior technical marketing engineer with VMware in our storage and availability business unit, and I am responsible for all things storage in VMware Cloud on AWS. So before we get started today, we want to begin by bringing you through and just bring you up to current. So we want to start with an introduction to the VMware Cloud on AWS service, in case there's anyone who this is new to, which I don't think that's the case, but we'll do this mostly for those watching online. Before I get into this, though, I'd just like to acknowledge something. VMware Cloud on AWS is not VMware's first foray into hosted vSphere. We've done this a bunch, right? We've got service provider offerings. We've even had offerings ourselves. But I'm going to make the case that what we're doing now fundamentally is different. But it's not different because of what we have built. It is different because of whom we have built it with. This is a case of two forces being better together. Amazon complements our technology stack and solves challenges that we struggle with ourselves, and VMware is opening up entire markets to Amazon and workloads that it otherwise would not be able to deal with. So what have we built? Well, VMware Cloud on AWS is a managed offering, which is delivered by VMware, right? So this is sold, operated, and supported by VMware proper, where we take the VMware vSphere suite of products. So this is the vSphere Hypervisor, NSX, and vSAN SDS stack, and we install it on top of EC2 hardware running inside Amazon's global infrastructure. So this is not nested. This is not encapsulated. We're putting the hypervisor directly on bare metal hardware inside the service. Now, of course, since this is based on VMware vSphere, that means that we have native runtime compatibility with all of the millions of virtual machines that have been deployed all around the world. But when we built the VMware Cloud on AWS service, we didn't build it with this assumption that it would be an either-or proposition. We built it in the modern world. So we built it with hybridity in mind. To that end, we built an extension that we called Hybrid Link Mode, which enables us to take that cloud-hosted SDDC and vCenter instance and connect it to your on-premises instance and provide a single pane of glass where we can logically manage both those environments and, more importantly, easily move workloads back and forth between them. As compelling as that is, I actually think the most compelling aspect of this service, and you kind of got a little snippet of this going the other way this morning in the keynote, is that because we're sitting in Amazon's global infrastructure, because we're inside their SDDC, because we're inside their network, that means that any workload that we run inside of VMware Cloud on AWS cluster, we can choose to go ahead and run it just like we do on premises, or we can choose to build this next generation solution where we use a combination of GOTS and COTS software in conjunction with native AWS services, using that NSX connectivity to be able to logically connect out into the Amazon service. Now, VMware Cloud on AWS, of course, is a year old. When we launched it a year ago, we released in the US West Oregon data center, and we publicly announced the ambition to have global availability eventually. 1 year later, we are currently available in the US West Oregon and US East North Virginia Amazon regions, as well as the London and Frankfurt European regions. Here this morning, we've announced that we have turned on availability in Sydney, so we have our first APAC region coming online. And we also shared this morning that we have plans to rapidly expand into Tokyo, as well as our initial offering inside the US GovCloud facility, which is going to be very exciting for us.
Are there targets on Singapore?
Yes. Yes. Singapore is on the roadmap. I'm not sure where it is. There was a slide in the keynote this morning that had every single region for the next year. Cool. The quarter that we're targeting it and where we're going. This took a while, right? The first initial availability, going from US West Oregon to North Virginia took 6 months for us to turn on the second data center. London was, I think, 3 months after that, and Frankfurt was 6 weeks after that. So it's just we're getting faster with every single region, and we expect that to continue to go as both VMware Operations and AWS Fleet Management just gets better at managing the service.
Totally. Awesome.
So now what I'd like to do very quickly, or as quickly as I can, is just kind of walk through some of the core scenarios that we envision and the kinds of workloads that natively excel and are aligned to the VMware Cloud and AWS service, because it'll play into when we get into this joint offering and where we complement one another. The first integration or scenario is our maintain and expand scenario. This is the core vSphere customer. This is the core NetApp vSphere customer. They have a large on-premises installation. They have architecture teams. They have in-house expertise. And for those reasons, they will always have a large on-premises presence. That will forever be the most cost-effective way that they're going to be able to manage that infrastructure. But even in those scenarios, even in those customers where we're dealing with truly like I've got scale and talent and I can do this, there's still a place for VMware Cloud and AWS. There's still a place where if an organization leverages it appropriately as an extension of their on-premises infrastructure to work around problems when they arise, either in capacity restrictions, but more importantly, one of the use cases that I really am trying to draw to the forefront is just that this is a way to reduce risk. When we take a new initiative on premises, right, when we sit down with a new customer and we start going through I'm going to build a 6-node cluster and here's the storage I need for this workload, there's a whole bunch of assumptions about what that workload's going to look like, what it's going to require. And if we get any of those assumptions wrong, that's going to impact the result. That'll impact the end experience from a customer perspective. And on premises, unfortunately, as powerful it is from a cost control perspective, there's only so many options that we have from being able to resolve that. VMware Cloud on AWS has none of these downsides. If we dramatically underestimate the service and it turns out nobody's interested in our new offering, we simply delete the SDDC and we've lost nothing. Right? We can take this new initiative, try it out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, turn it off. We've lost nothing. More importantly, though, if it's wildly successful, if it just starts growing out of control, we're not locked in. We just scale the SDDC with it because we have endless capacity inside the Amazon cloud infrastructure. Even if we miss our market, let's say we launch in Europe and it turns out that all of our users are an APJ. Right? The ability to redeploy on demand and bring your services. It's just a capability that you don't have when you do everything native. And because we're based in vSphere, because we have hybridity in mind, go ahead, take that workload, throw it up into VMware Cloud on AWS, prove your point. Once it's successful, once you've gotten to that steady state perspective, you can sit down with tools like our cost insight capability inside the portfolio and figure out exactly how much on-premises infrastructure you actually need and build just that. So I think that first scenario, whilst it's not the main drive that we're seeing inside our customer base today, I think it's one that particularly larger organizations that are just used to doing everything themselves, I think they'd be better served to give it a try, to see if they can accelerate their deployments and reduce the risk. We'll go a little quicker through the next two because they'll be a little more familiar to everyone watching. The second scenario is our Consolidate and Migrate. There's a variety of reasons that we see this inside the installation base. This is the majority of our accounts that we see today. And really, this is any use case where we're dealing with transitory resources. So a classic example of this would be M&A. So company A buys company B. Company A then comes in and instantly says, you shall be out of your data center in 6 months or we're going to fine everybody $6 million, right? It becomes this giant initiative that hangs over everyone like a guillotine. VMware Cloud on AWS offers a very unique scenario to solve this challenge. We can simply connect, spin up a brand new SDDC in any region we choose, take HCX and do a bulk migration, sucking all of that workload up into a cloud-hosted SDDC resource. We are now out of that data center. Turn it off, do whatever you want to do from a lease perspective. We've got out. We can now take our time, go through, consolidate services where it makes sense, delete the things that we don't need, and once we've finished sorting it down, again, take those bulk migration utilities and shove everything back on premises if that's what you want to do. Right? So transitory data center swing space. We also see this just for maintenance, right? You got to take it down. We've seen customers, just use it for a month, right? It's an enterprise class vSphere environment available on demand that we can have ready within 120 minutes of clicking create. So it's just a capability that you don't see elsewhere. Finally, we have our flex as needed workload flexibility use case. This really leans into the fact that we've got this platform that sits in between Amazon's cloud infrastructure and your private on-premises infrastructure, right? And being able to take a workload-centric view of those use cases and move the workload where it is best suited depending on the needs of the application at that time. An example of you can kind of see where this is going. Think of the announcement that we now have RDS on premises, right? The ability, this is full bidirectional application-centric management where we can take a platform view. Relational database services. It's a service inside Amazon that replaces SQL Server.
We talked about in the keynote.
All right.
So
I didn't know attendance to the keynote was required.
So big picture, I'm just trying to figure out how this fits into, say, Horizon on AWS. So are they separate? Are they different? Can you do virtual desktops in this?
Great question.
How
Great
does that-
question. Yeah, so Horizon 7 is absolutely a solution that is supported on VMware Cloud on AWS. It's a workload and an integration that we have. It is also natively inside Amazon, right? And those, honestly, that's a customer-centric approach. Where would you rather do business? Do you want to go directly inside the Amazon marketplace and do business with Amazon and leverage our technology? We're there, we meet you where you are. Or would you rather just stay in a pure vSphere environment and do it that way? So they're both supported.
So in the context of what you're sharing today,
Yes.
I can consider Horizon part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what if I'm a customer that did Horizon on Azure? Does that, and then all of a sudden I wanted to maybe do this AWS thing instead? Would they migrate, or do we have clouds playing nice together in that case?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't, unfortunately. Okay. I don't know what the migration path would look like between Azure and Amazon. But at the end of the day, what I would say is this is vSphere. We have taken vSphere and bifurcated it all the way up the middle and taken all the core administrative functionality, all the risky stuff and the hard tasks, and we've handed those off to VMware Operations, and we manage those assets. We then take and deliver a resource pool, a data store, and a customer accessible NSX SDN stack. And with those three resources, customers are then free to do anything that they can do inside vSphere.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, all right. So with that,
By
we'll
definition,
change.
one data store?
Yeah, so the service today is built on vSAN. So we have a single vSAN cluster. We still needed a way to bifurcate the administration team. So what we've done is we've implemented logical data store support on top of the vSAN cluster. So it's one common capacity cluster with two logical data stores. We put all the administrative stuff in the management data store. Only VMware has write permissions to that. The customer can read. They can see what happens. And then the customer has a workload data store. They're just logical. And the analogy would be OUs in Active Directory or folders in a file system.
Yeah, but it's still one failure domain.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Glenn. And before we go on to the next section, I think the one thing that I'll add on to what Glenn said around Horizon and this particular offering is whether it's Azure or whether it's done in Amazon or on-prem, they're all done a little bit differently. So one is RDS based, one is non-persistent link clones, instant clones, and so each of the different services, pick your cloud, has a different way of doing it. So there would be some migration between the different clouds to be able to accommodate the way that each one does Horizon.
Okay, I was curious because I know the backplane for Horizon's still on AWS, even if you deploy on Azure. So I wasn't sure if it would play nice.
Yeah, that is one of the things that we can talk about when we talk about use cases and things that we're seeing our customers have interest in for VMC.